I don't see Bob yet either.
He may not be here. He's flying, I think.
Okay. Okay, well, if that's the case, I think everybody else is here. So ready to go when you are.
Is Cameron on?
Oh, Cameron's jumping on right now.
And I'm here too. So you've got double
Oh,
legal.
okay. Oh, wow. Thank you, Polly. Fairly late at night.
Sure. Yep. Looking forward to the meeting.
Okay. YouTube going, Alicia?
Yep, we're ready to go when you are.
Okay. All right. I have to quit at 8 o'clock, by the way, 2 hours from now. So Chris, you may need to take over if we don't get done in 2 hours, which would be a first anyway, if we get done in 2 hours. This is the Hideout Utah Town Council regular meeting and public hearing, September 8th, 2022. This meeting is electronic only without an anchor site. Call a meeting to order and do roll call. So from council members, Chris Beyer.
Here.
Good, thank you. Mary Jacobs.
Here.
Ralph Severini.
Here.
Bob Nadelberg. I say he may join later or he may not make it at all because I know he's working tonight. So let's put him down as excused at the moment. And then I don't think Carol's here yet, right? Carol Hazelton? She said she was going to be late, so. Okay. We'll add her as soon as she arrives. First item on the agenda is a public hearing, consideration and possible approval for driveway amendment for lot 38 and 39 of the Overlook Village subdivision. Thomas, I'm going to let you take us through that. I know you've been working on that. I
Great,
thought
thanks.
we already talked about this once.
Yep. So actually, this is a driveway that is just south of the driveway that you guys have heard before. So prior, you guys had looked at lot 37 and 30. I'm sorry, 36 and 37. This is for 38 and 39. And Kathleen, if you're driving, you may want to go to the second page and show the image. That might be easier, and I'll just walk kind of through this quickly. If you remember, we had a similar situation on lot 36 and 37. What the applicant is proposing to do for lots 38 and 39 is move the egress portion of the driveway that connects to Longview Road a little bit to the south. And so you can kind of see there in the image that the dark gray is the existing platted limited common driveway. The proposal is kind of framed in the two dark lines that are not yet colored in. The rationale for this is that this is, again, one ingress egress to Longview Drive that accesses two houses. And if you look at the kind of the gradient area, there were some concerns with regard to safety and slope where the driveway came in very much in front of lot 38, that top lot right there. So there were some concerns there. Both parties agreed that it would be a better design to move it a little bit to the south. There are some benefits overall to that because it gives a little bit more separation between this driveway and the one to the north as well. And so it's a proposal that we support. The applicant is proposing that this driveway would be 16 feet wide with 16 foot wide concrete asphalt concrete with 2 feet on either side that would be kind of a crushed gravel to give it the width necessary for safety. The proposal will have a short retaining wall about 4 feet high. Right next to Longview Drive, there's an existing trail easement that will be preserved, that trail easement that runs along there. We have a few conditions noted on the next page, just noting that Slopes cannot exceed 14% pursuant to town engineering code. They provided an updated drawing that notes that the steepest portion is about 11.9 some percent, call it 12%. And so they fall in line to that condition. Again, the retaining walls would not exceed the 6 feet maximum. It'd be about 3.5, 4 feet, and it would be stacked rock pursuant to the ordinance. We'll work with them on the final subdivision to ensure the common area and limited common area are very clearly illustrated. And the applicant is here if you have any specific questions, but really that's all the information that we wanted to convey unless you have questions. But the Planning Commission made a positive recommendation at their August 18th meeting, and we're here for, again, it is a public hearing and for your input and direction.
Thank you, Thomas. Let's start with council members. Questions from council members for Thomas or the applicant.
No questions. It just looks like a much better plan.
It is, yeah.
It looks a little steeper than it was when it in its old location. Is that true, Thomas? It's just a little bit of a steeper exit off of Longview onto the driveway, or is it about the same?
I think it's about the same. I'll let Dallin answer that, but I think that when we did the comparison, it's really, really close to the same. The slope actually off of the road is pretty much consistent in that location between the old and the new, if I remember correctly. But Dallin, you can confirm that.
It does get steeper, but it's like 1%, maybe 2%.
Yeah, it's a much better design this way. You get a little longer, more of a straight shot into your garage. And you might actually be able to get some cars parked in front of your garage and have you estimated if you can get an additional car there or something, with this realignment?
Yes, it does provide more room for that. That's not the intent, but it is a bonus.
Yeah, it's definite bonus.
Has the HOA signed off on this since they're the ones that plow the driveway?
We have applied to them, but we missed the last meeting, so they're kind of the last leg.
So Thomas, I think that would have to be a condition.
Actually, that is a condition, and there's a resolution associated with this. I submitted an updated one to tonight where we made a couple of minor additions that didn't make it into the first round. And one of them is that the HOA does have to sign off on this plat. Dallin's aware of that. And so we included that in there as well. And they do have to make sure that they run this through DRC, the Design Review Committee for the HOA, and they're aware of that. And both of those are included in the updated resolution.
Okay, thanks, Thomas.
Yeah, we've already applied.
Any other questions from? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, the only thing I was going to ask was town engineer, because you're in the conditions of approval, attorney, town planner, and you, Thomas, and the engineer will review and approve the final form. So as long as that's still in place. But
That
did
is
we
still
get
in
any? What was that, Thomas?
That is still in place, and we have Brian and Dylan with TO Engineering have reviewed this with me with regard to the percent slopes, et cetera, and they'll do the final review at time of final subdivision submittal when we work through the Mylars.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, anything else from council? And I'm going to open it for public input. Anyone who's on the Zoom who wants to comment, use the raise your hand function on Zoom. Anyone on a phone who needs to comment, it's *9. Someone who has screen view will have to let me know if any hands are coming up.
I don't see anybody yet, Mayor.
Thanks, Thomas.
Nothing.
Okay, then I'm going to close public input, and come back around to council, and Thomas, you want to put the resolution up?
There it is, yes.
Or, yeah, okay, or Kathleen? Thanks, Kathleen. So, Thomas, I mean, council, I believe everything Thomas has mentioned is in the resolution, but if you want him to go through it, let me know, and we'll have him do that.
And Mayor, it's worth noting that I did have to tidy this resolution up. We added a 10th condition, which was the HOA has to sign off. I don't think that we need a JSSD sign off on this one because it's already been taken care of from a water perspective through JSSD. I had that in the initial resolution. I sent an updated one to Alicia today, but really those were the only two changes were some clarifications with regard to JSSD and adding that HOA condition.
Yeah, it's okay. Council, questions on the resolution before I ask you to make a motion?
Just a quick question. Are we looking at the revised one? Or are we looking at the one from the packet?
Actually, you're looking at the one from the packet, but I think she's pulling up the revised one right now. And
Okay.
thanks, Kathleen. If you could just zoom down to the conditions of approval, that's probably where people would like to make sure that they review. There you go. Number 10 is included there.
Did you take out the JSSD line?
We did. We took that out because that's already been worked through as a part of the overall subdivision in terms of water.
Okay.
We always do check with JSSD before we sign plats anyway, but I don't think that it'll be necessary because water's already been allocated. This isn't a change or an increase in number of lots. This is simply changing the limited common.
Okay. I think it looks good.
Okay, if there are no questions from council on the resolution as it's been displayed at the moment, the revised version, then I'd be looking for a motion to adopt a resolution allowing a lot driveway amendment for lots 38 and 39 of the Overlook subdivision.
Yeah, also move.
I'll
Thank
second.
you, Ralph. I need a set. Thank you. That was Sherry, I think.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, let's get input. Oh, sorry, Carol is on. So, welcome, Carol. We're in the process of looking to approve this driveway amendment, but before I do that, since you've joined, do you have questions for Thomas about this driveway amendment?
No, I studied it and I drive past it almost every day, the two driveways. So I think I'm okay.
Thank you. All right, so we have a motion and a second for the resolution to approve the change. So now I'm going to poll council. Chris?
Yes.
Thank you, Chris. Carol?
Yes.
Thank you. Ralph?
Yes.
And Sherry?
Yes.
Resolution passes. Congratulations, you have the town support for your driveway amendment. Now you just need to take care of the other items with the HOA.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Council. Thanks, Dallin.
Thank you.
Okay. The next item is public input. Floor is open for any attendee to speak on items not listed on the agenda. please limit your comments to no more than 2 minutes. And because I can't see the list, I'm going to have to rely on Chris for you to recognize any hands and let Alicia or Kathleen let them in.
Okay, so far I don't see any hands from the chat. So if you don't know how to raise your hand, if you're on the Zoom, at the bottom of the screen, there's a raise hand. You can click that. Or Alicia, what is the keystroke combination to raise your hand if you want to do that?
I believe it's *6 to raise your hand and then *9 to unmute, but it looks like Damien's got his.
No, other way around.
Sorry.
*6 is mute and mute. 6 is mute and unmute. *9 is raise hand.
Okay, thanks.
Super. Yeah, I do see Damien, whose hand is raised. So can you go ahead and unmute Damien? Or allow him to unmute himself?
Good
There you
evening.
go.
Can you hear me?
Yep. Go
Thank
ahead.
you. I really wish this was a two-way conversation, but hopefully next time I'll be able to. Good evening, council members. My name is Damian Taitano of 2022 East Purchase Drive in Hideout. I am one of the lot owners in Golden Eagle development with the building permit currently being denied for issues that are out of my control. I have requested that our permit application be brought to the town council for discussion with you guys, and you guys are our governing body, so that is appropriate. I have been told that building permits are not under your purview, and I believe that is incorrect. Similar to what we just heard about you guys looking at an adjusted permit on a driveway, my building permit is really no different. You guys are the governing body of all things that go through town. Staff has refused to meet with me in person or virtually, and won't have a dialogue about the corrections or arguments that I've put forth regarding the validity of the reasons for our permit rejection. That's why I want to talk to you guys. It is very disappointing that the process is not being handled correctly and our rights are being violated. I plead with the entire council to schedule our permit, our building permit, as an agenda item for discussion in the next town council, so we can have an open conversation. In my preparation for this meeting, I have requested a grammar record of all active and pending permits in Golden Eagle. It has come to light that there are no existing grading permit nor improvement permits for Golden Eagle. I believe the town comments on my permit denial are trying to put the responsibility of the developer onto the individual lot owners, which I think is hopefully obvious to everyone how obscenely wrong and inappropriate that is. And I'm hoping that we can stop this. I have no idea of the history of Hideout if previous developments had no grading or improvement permits, but I believe this is the reason why we aren't getting clear answers. We are just private citizens that cannot make the developer do anything, as they are also private entities. This is why we have an incorporated town to protect us. The current and future citizens of the town, I think, deserve better. We deserve transparency on the issues and an open, honest conversation with the town council and staff. I have emailed the council on many occasions about the key issues of the permit denial, such as the requirements for assurance and storm drain plan, which clearly those are not something that I can control. And I believe that they potentially are in violation of the temporary restraining order against the town. When I come to meet with you or talk with you, I'm not asking for the building permit to be immediately granted. We understand that there are shortcomings in the infrastructure, and I 100% want my water and sewer to work completely, but I also want to know what we're doing and how we're going to process that. It can't be on the lot owner's shoulders. There's got to be a better way. And if the builder doesn't have the correct permits that you can't enforce, then that needs to be established. I just want to establish a path forward together, hopefully. You know, I thank you for all your work and your consideration. And if you have any insight or can shed some light on some of the issues I brought up or some of the things I've been emailing you and you want to speak to them tonight, I would greatly appreciate that. But I'm just hoping that you schedule my permit application for agenda next time. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to ask that our town legal representative, Polly McLean, to respond to some of the comments that were made tonight by that gentleman.
Yep, sure. So, as many of you may be aware, or all aware, the up in Golden Eagle, there are serious deficiencies in the infrastructure. And based on the court's order, we are required to review every building permit lot by lot. So there's no blanket denials of any building permits per the court order. However, we have to look at each one on a case-by-case basis, and we have done that for each and every one. And there are certain deficiencies, for example, on this lot that have to do with water infrastructure and other issues that are also out of the town's control. And we can't, it's up to the developer to have those items ready. And we can't move forward and allow for building permits until the issues pertaining to each lot are addressed. In terms of, an overall grading permit for the subdivision was begun in, we believe 2019. We
Nope.
did not find for the infrastructure, for grading and other infrastructure permits. We've looked and we haven't found any permits issued, but that was under a prior administration. So,
It would have been 2017, Polly.
Okay.
Because
Oh, right. You're right. 2017, 2018. I apologize. Yeah, thank you for that. So based upon that, we're working with the developer and want to be able to issue the building permits, and we'll do so as soon as we can under state law and our local laws.
I think it's important to recognize that we have requested on multiple times from the developer for those permits. For the grading information and the drawings and designs. We are trying to, although the lot owners won't want to believe this, but we are trying to aid in the progress of them getting us being able to issue permits by continuing to chase the developer for these, but not stopping work. By rights, I think we could probably say we're pulling all your permits until you provide these documents, and everybody go home. And we don't want to do that because they are making progress up there. So we're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, and requesting the documentation we need from the developer, and also in trying to keep the project moving enough that at some point in the hopefully near future, that infrastructure will be in place that we can start granting the permits.
So just to be
Polly,
clear, Kari, can I ask a question, Mayor and Polly?
Sure.
So grading started 2017. That was prior administration. Then, and that was a long time ago. There've been a lot of changes in the town, including the town administration function. We've really expanded and added a lot of capable, competent employees now. But at that time, are you saying that there was no permit issued for grading prior? That administration did not issue a permit for grading and did not enforce that, allow the grading to happen?
That's my understanding. I don't,
That's,
I can't,
that's, yeah, sorry, sorry, Polly. So
no,
yes,
go ahead.
Chris, the prior administration did allow a lot of work to take place without grading permits. In fact, when I came into office, grading permits didn't exist. It's one of the things that I instituted when I was elected in my first term. So, you know, they were allowed to do work with with a council approved master plan for development.
Okay. And just to be clear, the mayor at that time was, it was Bob Martino, or it was Mayor Pro Tem Dean Heavrin, right? At that time, who was
That's correct.
in charge?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
All right. So we don't go retroactively and demand these things. Or I mean, you said that we've asked nicely, or we keep pursuing them for it, but we have not exercised our right to stop them from working until they kind of catch up with the grading plans and the engineering documents that need to be filed with the town. Is that also what I heard?
That's what you heard.
Okay.
And to be
In-
clear, that's not the only holdup here, right? It's not just because they didn't have a permit. The issue is that there's a lack of access. For example, I'm just related to this lot in particular, for example, there are issues with the access having to do with Golden Eagle Road. There's issues with the shoulders. There are issues with the materials or turnaround, so that we're clear that there's fire. Actually, I take that back. This one does have a turnaround, but there are issues with the shoulder. There are issues with the water system being at a point that it's reliable. So, and then there are issues with having assurances, completion assurances, that type of thing. So,
And a storm drain plan.
and a storm drain plan is also something that we do need, that was promised to us. So, we recognize that that the owners are in a difficult position, but as a town, we feel strongly that we need to make sure that those things are in place before giving a building permit, because that's part of our responsibility as a town.
Right. And can you imagine if you were a property owner and we did bend the rules there and let you start your construction, but you'll never get a CO until everything is in place. You can't live there, right?
And that's why I have suggested some focused permits to focus on the sewer specifically, because that's the kind of weird one that no one quite can describe why it's not been accepted yet. But focus the permits, focus their work on the areas that would get the majority of us moving forward.
So what we're talking about, your particular permit, building permit, Damien, and having to address that and the infrastructure deficiencies for it, and why the town administration cannot issue you a building permit yet. And so we're dealing with that directly, I think, right now with your question. But I'm just trying to understand, current conditions, where the developer is, what happened prior to this administration when Bob Martino was the mayor here and was in control of what was happening in the administration. Clearly he bent the rules in order to just start his own development, and that started at that time under those conditions. But it's got to finish under our current. It's got to finish under our current, set of requirements, because we're doing this not because we want to and being capricious. We're doing this because we're actually protecting the future residents of Hideout. And that we're ensuring that the infrastructure is there and accepted by the town, and we can protect the health and safety and welfare of our residents.
I completely agree and understand that is your motive and your strategy, but the assurance for infrastructure, the storm drain plan, the grading permit, and the infrastructure permit, those are all things that you've chosen not to enforce, but we're not making any progress. So the current strategy is not working.
Okay. It sounds like there is progress. It's just not fast enough, right? And I think that's what I heard from the mayor, that, you know, we haven't stopped them because they are making progress. It's just not fast enough for anybody, really.
Yeah, and let
Okay,
me just
so-
jump in and just say that,
Go ahead, Paul.
you know, I don't want to make any, I don't think it's appropriate to make any statements about, I haven't, regarding bending rules or whatever. All I know is that no permits were required. And so we are living with that, and whether we could do a stop work now because we're lacking those things, I think is true. But, you know, in terms of we are where we are today, and let's not make any statements regarding the prior actions, but we're living with what we've got here. And that's exactly right. We can't, just because, you know, we understand that a lot of these things are not something that the individual owners can address themselves, but that doesn't mean that we should be giving permits, because we have a responsibility to make sure those things are in place. So, and I believe there is progress happening from what I hear, although as stated, it's obviously not fast enough for some of the owners, but we don't have control over that.
And I
So
just want to say,
Polly-
I just want to say, we want folks to be able to build up there. We want them to move in and become part of this community. That's exactly what we want. So, you know, I'm looking forward to the day when this can happen much more smoothly.
I guess
Yeah,
the two
my
things that I
comment
have.
would be, so we've heard a lot of things that we can't do or we're kind of stuck in. I haven't heard too many creative ways of what we should be doing to kind of accelerate this. I don't know if Damon, I'm sorry, I don't remember your last name. Yeah, so I don't know if we can, you know, kind of accelerate this through other mechanisms. I'm guessing, you know, the town administration has been trying to apply some pressures in the appropriate spots. But Polly, is there anything that you could suggest to this applicant that could further that person's efforts to get, you know, get this process moving? The, you know, the shoulders, the storm drains, the different things that need to be submitted. Is there anything that he can do or anyone else can, so to speak, in this process? Are we just caught in, you know, are we just caught in limbo here without being able to do anything, or is there some things that can be done?
I mean, the owners need to talk to the developer, who they're the ones that, you know, they need to work with them directly. There's nothing the town can do. We don't have assurances, so we can't step in and do the work. And they are doing work, so they need to speak directly to the developer and work on them getting a schedule. It's just completely out of our control.
The assurance for infrastructure and the storm blame plan, those were not required at the time that they started. So following the logic that you're not doing a grading permit or an infrastructure permit, those requirements should be removed from our building permit denial.
I would strongly disagree with that. A bond was required by our prior rules as well. It was just never enforced by the town.
Okay, so I guess as owners, how do we get you guys to then enforce some of these rules that you guys haven't chosen to enforce? Because to us, that's the only path.
Well, you have a
Yeah.
lot of different things going on here where, I mean, the fact is that the storm drain was required at the get-go and they didn't enforce it. And just because they haven't done it yet, I mean, you need to have a storm drain plan. Otherwise, you're going to have flooding, the possibility of flooding in your house. So, you know, I think that, you know, owners need to talk directly with Mustang and ask them to work with them to find out what the timing is for all this. But in any case, you're not gonna, and then, you know, you need to have that water infrastructure in place and the access fixed before the permits can happen. And so you need to work with the developer to find out what that timing is.
But the developer
it-
has no obligation to us, but they do have an obligation to you.
They don't have
The-
they have an obligation
you-
to everyone. They have an obligation to you.
Well, no,
Anybody who
technically
bought-
they can
whoever-
move at their own pace. You guys are letting them not fulfill the requirements that you're holding us to.
Well, you're the ones who had the contract with them when you bought the property. So
But-
whatever your contract with them was, that's out of our hands. But all we know is that they need to have those things in place so that we want to give those permits, but we can't do it until the items that we have depicted in your letter are fulfilled. And so,
But you're asking
that's-
us to do your job. This is your job to enforce those requirements on the
It is-
developer. It's not
it
the
is-
lot
it-
owner's job.
We're doing our job. We're doing our job by demanding that those guys provide the infrastructure that's required to allow people that they've sold lots to build homes.
Okay.
Job is not to, that's our job. Our job is to make sure that what you're getting, right, when you get your building permit is a suitable infrastructure to support the home that you choose to build. That's our job. Our job is not to make them go at any given rate. As long as they're making some kind of progress. If their job is sitting idle, then we have rights to do things. But again, that's not sitting idle. It's just not moving at a very not at a quick enough pace so that we can get this thing moving. And we spend a lot of time with that group up there. Believe me, a lot of time. So I push back strongly that you don't think that we're doing our job. We are doing our job.
Okay. I completely respect that that's the path that you've chosen is the one that you think is best. I respect that. It just is very difficult to accept that they're not accountable for what they're required to have. That's the difficult part.
Well, I agree with you completely, but unfortunately, the mechanisms that we have to require them to speed up, add more staff, fix the specific issue points beyond the continued pressure that we put on them about this. I don't think I have to rely on our legal team to tell me if there's anything else we can do there. But, hopefully, I think reaching out to the organizations whom you bought from, or the individuals whom you bought from. I don't know if you bought from a developer or bought from a prior landowner, but and letting them know your frustrations is certainly a critical support step.
Okay.
And to take this to a broader level, I don't know, Polly, we stop work, it stops work, but it may get their attention, but I don't know that it does. I don't know if it helps the residents any.
right, I think we're doing all we can to help them move it forward. If we do a stop work, then things are going to slow down even more. and that's not going to get to that end goal. So we still do need the plans, and we can't accept any of the infrastructure until we have the plans, but that's not the ultimate holdup right now. The ultimate holdup is that the infrastructure is not even in. But they do have to, whatever they put in is going to have its plans and have inspections and all that.
Right, and be
because
tested and all the normal things.
Right.
Agreed. So I don't know if there's anyone from Mustang on tonight, but you can hear the frustration with this particular owner. I know that there are multiple owners who have the same frustration. I am personally an owner of land up there and can do nothing as well because of the same reasons. So it's frustrating for all of us. And I promise you that the town keeps a lot of pressure on the developer to try and address these issues. And hopefully we can get this done. I don't know what else to say.
All right.
The-
Hey,
the only thing
Mayor, I'm
ahead.
sorry, Damien, I'm going to have to cut you off here.
No problem. I understand.
And I'm sorry to call you by your first name, but that's what you put in as your name
Yeah,
on
no, that's all good.
Okay, thanks. We appreciate your comments and the little discussion that we've had here, but I wanted to let the mayor know we have another hand up, and that's Nelson Farber.
Okay,
Can we
if
unmute
you can let
Nelson?
him.
Okay, Nelson, it looks like you're unmuted.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. And I appreciate everybody's time. Damien, I appreciate what you shared today. I'm also a landowner in Golden Eagle, equally frustrated, but I think Damien, for you to be able to present, obviously something that's you're experiencing some financial harm through this process and you're maintaining your composure. So I appreciate, what you shared and, the way you did it with respect. I'm equally frustrated. I think, as I kind of look at the situation objectively, I know that there's a temporary restraining order against the town to issue permits as Polly described. Part of that analysis to have a temporary restraining order against the town is that the moving party, Mustang Development, would have to have a higher likelihood of proceeding successfully on the merits as the case proceeds to trial. And I think that's informative. I mean, I think there's really good points that, there does need to be infrastructure improvements on things like sewers and that to be inspected and, those watershed matters. But I think there are other matters that aren't as strong as those. And I believe those will be resolved, but I think there's some other ancillary comments that are being made that are as part of the permit denial process that aren't as strong as those other ones. And I think that's why the judge ruled that the moving party, Mustang Development, would have a higher likelihood of prevailing at trial on the merits of their motion. So to be objective as possible, I think the developer does have work to do, but I also think there's some points that the town could probably, I just would suggest that the basis of denial is not as strong as some other reasons that they're providing denials for. So I share that only as context. To me, it's likely, since there is a TRO and there still aren't permits being issued, I think it seems to be very likely that Mustang is going to file a contempt motion against the town. And I would ask let's just imagine a scenario where that does get filed and Mustang is again successful. Are we then going to start issuing permits? And to me, I think at that point, the right thing to do is yes. So I just kind of put the ball in your court. Perhaps there's going to be, more motion practice in this case that could result in, having a decision being made by this group of people that ultimately would allow for permits like Damien's to be issued. So that's all I have to share. Appreciate you guys entertaining this few minutes that I had, but with that, I'll finish. Thanks.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Polly, do you want to comment on
Yeah.
the TRO
Yeah,
process?
Right. I mean, to be clear, the judge was clear that the TRO was not a blanket to issue permits. And we feel that we have been, instead it was, there was a statement that was made that the town wasn't actually relying on about issuing permits, and the judge had issue with that and asked that we do a lot by lot analysis, which is why we're going about this the way we are. You know, I appreciate the comments, but you know, it's my belief that the town is following the court order. We're taking it very seriously, and you know, the judge has told us that if the requirements aren't met, we don't have to issue permits. And so that's where we're at right now.
And I think that it's important to understand that we have legal counsel advising us on what the state laws are in support of building out a development and issuing permits. And it is the guidance and advice of our counsel that the infrastructure at Golden Eagle does not meet the letter or intent of the law as written for the state of Utah. So we're restraining landowners from building because the infrastructure doesn't meet the law. And unfortunate that's the case, but that's the case, and that's our role as a municipality, is to enforce the law that the infrastructure that's required meets the code so that people can go ahead and build. So that's where we are, and that's why we've been keeping pressure on the development team to get that stuff done so you guys can go ahead. So we keep pushing, and we will continue to push. I think that's all we can say about that tonight.
All right, thank you, Mayor. I'm looking and I don't see any further hands up. Anyone on the phone? I think it's *9 to raise your hand so we can see that, and *6 to unmute. All right, so far, no additional hands up.
Okay, I'm going to close public comment and move on to agenda items. I believe the first item is an update from the MITRE team. Jan, you want to introduce that?
Sure, happy to introduce. We have on the line Ashley Burr, and is Heather on? Heather's on as well, and they continue to work collaboratively with the town, and we're just asking for an overall vision of what is the latest in the MITRE development area. So Ashley or Heather, whoever wants to present, go ahead.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Rubin and council members, for the invitation tonight. It's always fun to bring you some updates and let you know the progress that is being made in the project area. I am going to go ahead and share my screen and share the latest and greatest. Okay. I'll hide the thumbnail
Can
there.
someone confirm that they're seeing, hang on a second. Can someone confirm that you're seeing Ashley's screen?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So we'll get started. We'll start over at the Mayflower Resort. There's a lot of different things that are happening over there right now. So we have up here in the top corner, that's just kind of showing some of the new ski runs that have been cut in. I'm sure you're seeing them from the road as you drive by. So they have cut in the majority of ski runs that we're going to see on the front side, along with the ski beach area. They're working on the ones that are tucked back behind the faces that we see. It's important to note that anything that is facing the road, most of that is north facing. and actually has historical data that shows that it's about 10 degrees cooler than some of the runs over in Park City. So some of the concerns about snow sticking to those runs, we don't think that there's going to be any major issues there. So kind of an interesting little tidbit to share there. These buildings here that we see, the Pioche apartments, there's 4 of those buildings. I'm sure you've noticed the lovely blue color that is slowly disappearing as they put on the actual exteriors. There are, again, 4 buildings, 2 of which are going to go online yet this year for occupancy. And then the other 2 will follow in the first quarter of next year. There's 402 units there, 17 of which are dedicated to affordable housing in their first phase of that initiative.
I'm sorry to
Down here
interrupt,
on
but
the-
I'm not,
Yeah,
we're
go
not,
ahead.
we're, at least on my screen, all I'm seeing is a picture of the Jordanelle with some ski runs cut in, or, there we go. Is that, oh, maybe it's, okay, never mind. It's my screen. I apologize.
Okay, no, not at all. On the bottom left is a collection of pictures of the MWR hotel itself. We are now at the 4th deck. So there's 4 subterraneous floors. The remaining will be what you see above ground. The view that you see here, that you see facing the Highway 40, is where the convention center entrances will be. So those will be ground level there. And then you can travel up and over on the side that would be facing the ski beach, which would be 1 floor up, technically the 5th floor, where the porte-cochere will be located for the front entrance. So there's a lot happening there. And they are on track with their schedule to be soft opening in 24-25, along with some of the ski runs. Bottom right-hand corner are some graphics that have been put together to showcase what will be the ski village itself. It's about 1.1 million square feet of amenities. It's going to include condos, hotels. There's going to be skier services such as restaurants, retail, medical facilities, and the like, all supported on a platform with below ground entryway for deliveries and access that way. I apologize for the background ambiance. I'm actually in Moab, so I'm sitting at a campground. I apologize for that.
I'm sitting at one
what
too.
we see, oh, perfect. I'm in good company. I hope that the presentation is moving, the slides are moving. So what we have next, I'm showing are the Skyridge development. I'm showing this because we have the public infrastructure district over there that is supporting the Golf Academy and the Equestrian Center that are going to be open to the public, and also partnering with MIDA for recreational purposes facilities with the MWR directly. So we've got programming that we're working on with Hill Air Force Base, with the NAC, with Camp Williams, to bring some of those to the both active and veteran and DoD members will be eligible for some discounts and programming there. So this is just showing what that golf academy will look like. It's actually 3 holes, but has 3 different tee boxes on each, so you can play a total of 9. This here is showing the layout of what the Equestrian Center will look like down along the Jordanelle. You've got your barn, the outdoor arenas, and then there's also an indoor arena with trailer parking. And then they've got some pasture lots, and they have also cut in some equestrian dedicated trail that actually syncs up to the perimeter trail of the state park as well. So there will be lots of riding available there. Some of the other updates within the project, to date, we have 139 recorded certificates of occupancy. We have another 30 actually coming from Hideout. They are not recorded yet, but we know that you guys have them. So we're excited to see that these numbers are exponentially growing month over month. So it's very exciting to see that this project is coming to life. We have active permits of 133 residential permits. The MWR currently is the only active commercial permit at this time. Update on the West Frontage Road, which includes the access under the portals, the north and south portals. We have the final design in review with UDOT. We have a meeting next Wednesday where we expect to get that permit approval and then get issued. And the first order of business will be to move the wildlife fence. which is about a 30-day project. And then we'll start seeing some dirt moving over there. And that will actually be done in phases. And I apologize, this is kind of a small graphic here. But the first phase is going to include underneath that north portal, the realignment of that west frontage road up to the interchange as it exists now. And then phase 2 will be from the interchange south and under the south portal with the 319 connector. We are continuing to work with our partners to develop the programming for the MWR. We actually have a tour set up for next week with Hill Air Force Base, Camp Williams, and a few others. NAC will be joining us as well to talk about the Golf Academy programming specifically. So that is one of the caveats, and then also the Equestrian Center and how we can best market those with the military branches and make sure that they can take advantage of those as well. And then finally, I just wanted to show you some of the success we've had with the trail initiative. This is the Crandall Point Trailhead and parking. They have finished it. The parking actually ended up being larger than we've originally anticipated. And the trail loops are cut in. Ashley has actually had the opportunity to go out and ride them, and I hear that they are absolutely fantastic. So I'm anxious to get out there myself. But these are just some of the recreational initiatives that we are working on. So that is what I have for you in a nutshell. I don't know if there are any questions.
Council, questions for Ashley and the MIDA team?
Heather, a
Yes.
question about, and I think I hope I got this right. You said the north portal, there's going to be like a phased approach. You're moving a wildlife fence, but did you say the north portal and then realigning that frontage road is happening first?
Yes,
And then the
that's
south
first
portal
phase.
will happen after that?
Correct.
So do you have like a timeline for the north portal to open?
So the goal is that we will have it open by the end of next build season. That might be a bit aggressive. It might roll into the following spring, but we are really going to try to get that open by next fourth quarter.
Next build season, that's next year?
Yes, correct. Sorry, 23.
Okay. That north portal, that takes you right into Deer Valley from right?
Well, the gondola sits directly across from where you will come out on the west side. Yes, that is correct. But in order to access that at this point, you still will have to go up to where the entry currently exists. We are working on trying to figure out a drop-off access point just off of the frontage road there, but that has not happened yet. We haven't been able to get that figured out just yet.
Okay. Do you have any further information on kind of the operator of when the resorts do open, and you said there's going to be a soft opening 2024, 25 with some of the ski runs?
Correct.
Do you have any
Yes.
further information about the operator and who'd be operating the resort?
I know that the conversation is going very, very well right now with the operator of Deer Valley, and we think that will be ultimately the operator, but that is not anything definite yet. There is also the option that it could stand alone as its own resort.
Okay. Now that the trails have been cut, all of a sudden it's becoming very real for us over here in Hideout. Right? Because we're watching that and it's really a change. Doesn't look so natural over there anymore. So can you guys, I think for Hideout, we are one of these days going to have the ability to consider a dark skies lighting ordinance. And I know Jordanelle State Park is a dark skies park. What is the plan over there for the resort to try to, minimize light pollution and not become the thing that we really don't want to see over here, which is just a bunch of lights on all the time?
That's a great question. So we actually have in our building code, our standards and guidelines, dark sky compliance. So we are following the same dark sky compliance regulations.
Are you following, whose regulations are you following? Is it Wasatch County, or it's part of the design review for your community?
We have adopted what we followed suit with Wasatch County, which I believe followed suit with the state. I'd have to go back and look for sure where that came from, the compliance code came from, but it would be similar to what you see in neighboring communities.
Great, because currently there's lots of bright lights over there that shine over here, especially in the mornings. Yeah, but that's a construction condition, so I would hope that would change, when you've finished. It's definitely starting to feel real now over there.
Yeah, we are definitely excited to see the structures actually coming up out of the ground. The project is coming to fruition, and it's working the way we had hoped it would.
I just want to put a plug in for the snowboarders of the world. It would be a huge disappointment. And I would say for the military families as well, if snowboarding was not allowed at this new resort. So I just wanted to express my opinion there.
No, and we appreciate that. And honestly, at the end of the day, that is the decision of the operator that will be operating the mountain.
That's all I have. I don't know if any other council members have anything they want to ask Heather.
Hey, Heather, Ralph here. How big is the convention center again? And when is that going to be fitted into the schedule?
So there are 60,000 square feet. That includes some back of the house as well, but that's ballrooms, meeting spaces, and like your common areas where you can have functions as well. That is part of the MWR Hotel. That will be soft opening in 24-25, along with some of the runs and 2 other hotels.
And what was it? So I mean, it is a convention center. Is it like a number? Usually there's a maximum number of folks that can get in there. Do you have that established? And what uses are you going to have for that convention center, or expected use cases?
Well, so obviously we would love to see some DoD conventions in there, but it is open to anyone, any trade. It is constructed so that you can actually, bring in boats, or you could bring in vehicles. Excel likes to say too that it is actually structured. You could bring in a tank or those types of vehicles and amenities that the DoD may be interested in. So it's very much built to be very versatile for big conventions or even the smaller group meetings. But specifically to your question as to occupancy level for a convention, that I do not know at this point.
Is it planned to do any music facility there, or is that a possibility or not? Or is anything's on the table?
I think you could certainly use that venue in that capacity.
Thanks, Heather.
So Ralph's questions reminded me to ask about parking. How have you planned for parking, whether it's, for hotel guests who are driving in, or convention goers, or day users or visitors? Can you describe, your vision for how parking will work?
Sure. So for hotel guests and condo owners, or folks that will be running the condos, they all have subterraneous parking under each building to accommodate each of those facilities. And then there is also day skier parking that is established just to the south of the village there. Right now, you may not be able to see it from the road. There's a little over 500 surface lots currently already constructed, paved, waiting to go. And they have planned up to 1,200 with some ideas for additional parking as the demand becomes, it dictates. So they have looked at parking very seriously, and I think they've got a good plan in place.
Because that's going to be number one problem with all the resorts here in town, is parking,
right?
And how to get to them.
Right. And the 4 apartment buildings also has a mix of subterraneous parking and surface parking that actually is in between the 4 buildings.
Do you have any plans to, that doesn't, I don't know if 1,200 spots is a lot or not, or the size of the resort for day use versus, all the other parking demands that are going to be placed on your facilities. You're already contemplating how you're going to, because it's going to be so wildly popular to go there, how you're going to handle the crowds?
Right. So I think it's important to note too that Deer Cove, another developer group, they are just on the east side of the North Portal right there. They have actually drawn into their master plan proposals to have some parking with some structured parking that you could then shuttle from there over to the resort as well. So that's a bit of a relief valve. And then there may be potential for some more surface parking in the area. But again, it's a matter of letting the demand dictate that. Also,
Great, thank you.
I don't know structured parking is necessarily off the table either, but.
And to Chris's point on the parking, one of the complaints of all the locals is the pricing on parking, over the past few years, and it's only going to get worse. I don't know if you can share anything, Heather, on that or what.
I don't know what their plan is in particular for the parking as far as charging. Again, that falls back to having an operator in place as well, and what they negotiate with them. So we're waiting to find out a few more details, sitting in anticipation with everyone else. So.
Well, hopefully it's not much or it's zero. So.
Right.
Okay, anything else from particularly pertaining to Hideout as opposed to the general stuff?
I want to say,
I think right now, oh, go ahead.
Oh, just how good it's been to work with Heather and Ashley. They're very responsive and very collaborative, and I appreciate that.
So we are still
you,
working with Jan and your team on figuring out the interlocal agreements and if there's going to be any changes to that. Also working to help figure out potential commercial types of possibilities there as well. So you guys have put together a great financial team, I think, and you're making some really good decisions and contemplating a lot of really good ideas.
Thanks. Okay, I think we'll let the minded people go. They've been on for over an hour, and I'm sure they hadn't planned to spend the entire night with us.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having us, and we'll see you again.
Thanks for bringing
hopefully
us
in
the
a few
update.
months.
We appreciate it very much. Okay.
You are welcome. And if you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out to us too in between updates.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Okay. Go back to the agenda. So the next item is a discussion of possible approval of an ordinance on water conservation. We're kind of into this past the season now, and the town engineering team is doing work on and analyzing water consumption for both not just irrigation water, which is what this ordinance would have been, but also on domestic water, drinking water. And I'm recommending, unless the council wants to continue, I'm recommending that we move this to a later date when we have the rest of the data together, so we can give you a more complete picture and some ideas on things we might do besides just regulating irrigation water.
Mayor, a quick question about that. How do you separate out, we'll call it household water from irrigation water? Because don't we have one single water system and one meter per property?
We do, and all this ordinance was going to do was restrict the days and the hours in which you can water, but it doesn't address overall water consumption. And so we want to have all the water consumption data available for you to review and understand what we see as sort of baseline usage for single-family homes, annualized, monthly, that kind of stuff, so we can think about where we might look at adjusting rates, for example, for excessive consumption, and recognizing that excessive consumption could come either through usage inside the home or in irrigation.
Okay, that makes a lot
We
of
don't
sense.
have separate meters for outside water, for example, as you mentioned, Chris. So, but I think we all need to understand that the usage per unit, where our numbers, we have a take or pay platform with JSSD, so we need to influence how we need to put all that together so that we can make some logical thoughts. So if we had gotten this together for May, I would have been encouraging us to go ahead and restrict the water usage hours, because at least if people are going to water, let's do it at a time where the sun's not sucking it up as fast as you put it down. But given that we're already into September, I'm not sure that people are even going to be doing much irrigation anymore this season. So I think we have some time to finish up the water study.
That makes sense.
So, Mayor, this is Ralph. I agree. I think having more data is better, and having holistic data. Can we include like some projections of costs and savings, those kinds of things into that usage? The usage, and
absolutely.
If we get the more data we have, probably the better. And if we can look at it, not just tomorrow, but in 5 years, if we have continued growth at the rate we're going, we'll consume this, and the expectation is
that. Yeah, that's we're working on that too, Ralph. But that's a different agenda item, which is the total water availability for the town of Hideout. So I would separate that from any work on how much water
we consume.
You would consume in an annual basis kind of thing. But we're working on both, so you'll get to see it all either way. So you guys can decide if it makes sense to do it all together or not. But I'm trying to separate the water supply analysis from the water usage. Although they can't be, obviously, but I'm trying to separate, I guess. So when do we need to buy more water? When do we need to convert water from JSSD? I think that's a different timeline and so forth from just understanding what our current consumption rates are. So anyway, We'll get you both. You can look at it and see if it makes sense together or not. I don't know if I'm making sense, but anyway.
I mean,
so
it's easy to divide. We're just trying to figure out, consumption and conservation and cost. They all go together. So, ultimately, we're going to have to be dealing with the cost and consumption.
Exactly. And I think the other key thing, Ralph, is a decision on how do you manage conservation? Do you manage conservation by having financial impact? So because the data says that most homes are using X, and if we use that rate and we extrapolate that out, that means we have water for, up to X units for, so many years or whatever. And then, but if people are overusing that, if consumption grows over time beyond what we're seeing today, because our mix changes, for example, and we have a lot more larger families or full timers or whatever, then how do you control that? Do you control that by just clamping down, or do you control that by setting financial hurdles that say if you don't think about it yourself and you go over your typical monthly allotted number, then you're going to get a penalty on your water bill, right? And that kind of thing. So we've got to think about those kinds of things once we have all the numbers for us to look at. Is what should be the control valve? Do we shut off water?
Yeah, all
Do we-
agreed.
yeah.
Who's doing this study, by the way? Are we doing it? We have an app. We have
We're
some
doing
outs-
it in conjunction with TO
Okay.
and a number of professional external resources helping us in the whole water area, including JSSD is helping us with a lot of the data as well.
Thanks.
Okay, so let's hop on to the next one, which is discussion and consideration of adopting an ordinance amending the town code regarding business license and regulations and adopting regulation of short-term nightly rentals. So the purpose of this is we're not asking you to allow any more nightly rentals. That's not what this is about. This is about the fact that for the places that do have nightly rentals, they need to comply with the agreements that were made when the nightly rentals were granted that have to do with monitoring the units being put up for nightly rentals, ensuring that the business licenses exist and so forth. So I'm going to turn it over to Cameron or Polly. They've been working on this, and let them take you through the highlights of that. But please recognize that this is not saying that anybody gets to do more nightly rentals than are currently granted. That would have to come separately. But this is more about, now that you have them, here are the rules you have to behave by.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. And I think that the staff report hopefully lays it out well, but currently we don't have anything in our code which says that those places that are permitted to have nightly rentals are required, for example, to have a business license. So we wanted to clarify that and clarify that they need to have a property management service that can respond on site within 30 minutes. Currently, there's only 2 places within the town where nightly rentals are permitted. There's a broader discussion about that, which will be coming to Planning Commission, believe it sometime in the near future. But we wanted to make sure that we were regulating the ones that were allowed. So I'll answer any questions if you have them.
Yeah, hey Polly, this is Chris. How did you come up, or how was the professional management service that can respond within 30 minutes determined? And I'm really focused in on the amount of time, the 30 minutes. Is that a standard elsewhere?
It's a common one to have them be able to respond quickly if there are issues. And these came from what was agreed to as part of the approval process for these 2 projects. So I think what I have here, the plat note, that came from the plat note for the Deer Springs Phase 1, so that we have consistency between everyone. And that was something that the council required. I can't remember the exact date when that Deer Springs Phase 1 amended was approved, but was it within the last year, I think. And so that's how we got that. But 30 minutes, that requirement is almost always within an hour. I've seen 45 minutes, I've seen 30 minutes, I've seen an hour. So
Hey, Polly, in where you've made edits, I can see the bar on the left-hand side, short-term rental. which also is known as a nightly rental, which
Mhm.
is, yeah, I think you hit it there.
Oh,
So question on this one, because when we rewrote our zoning, we said we were pretty consistent with the original MDA about 90 days. Why are we here at 30 days? What's your reasoning on that?
I believe it's under state code is the definition of a nightly rental is anything under is 30 days or less. And that's a distinction. For example, if you rented your home for 90 days, it wouldn't click in. That's the difference between nightly rental and a monthly rental.
So, but consistent with what we've, continuing, and everyone, I think, or a lot of people in the town voted on or surveyed on, so to speak, in a way that, the 90-day period was what we really wanted. So we would lose nightly rental tax between someone that rented it 31 days and between 90. Is that correct? So if you read,
Polly and Ralph, it's Thomas, maybe I could jump in. Ralph, just for clarification, in the new code, we did change it to less than 30 days to match state code recommendations. So where it was originally 90, when the code was changed in November of 2020, we did go to short-term rental is less than 30. So these actually would match up.
So are we restricted to that because, the town still has, under our master development agreement, it's 3 months. So, so help me out with this in terms of what so if somebody rented something for 32 days, they would not be under a nightly rental for 31 days.
That's correct. Yep, that's correct.
And
That's
we would
kinda
collect nothing from the nightly rental charge. Is that correct as well?
Right, you wouldn't collect the TRT, that
Yeah.
transient room tax, if
Uh-huh.
it's 31 days.
Yes, that's the same in Park City. We had a property there and we paid sales tax on anything under 30 days, but somebody came in and rented it for more than 30 days that we didn't have to collect transient tax from them at that point. So it's pretty standard.
Yeah, we were doing the same thing in Park City with our property, but then we moved to a longer term. But I'm just thinking here, what options do we have to extend that? Do we have to meet state code, or is this something that we can redefine? Do we have to use the word short-term rentals or nightly rentals? And could we have town, something that we define as town rentals, and we can extend that? So that's my, because it's only caused massive problems with Park City that we know. I mean, it's been written up in multiple articles here. They've been debating it for a while. So what can we do anything along those lines that's a little bit more restrictive without breaking state law or some other definition?
Yeah,
or
I mean,
create
I
our own
think
definition?
I think that there are different things going on here. What this ordinance is meant to do is just make sure that we have a framework in place for the ones which are permitted. And when we talk about nightly rentals, we're talking about 30 under state code, we're talking about 30 days or less, and that's when that tax kicks in. But I think that when we look at nightly rentals more globally for the town, we can come up with a different definition if the minimum is 3 months, or we can look at that. Of course, all code can be changed. That's the idea of a living document, but these really has to be tied in with the state code, because we want to make sure that if someone is operating and renting for less than 30 days, that we have the ability to collect that tax. And one way that we, and regulate it, and part of how we would do that is through the business license.
Yeah, so my point is nothing, I'm consistent with you. I'm just thinking, if we change the term, can we widen the number of days? So, and we make it more, our term. So that's not consistent with necessarily state, the definitions that the state seem to have around short terms and nightlies. So if that's possible, I'd prefer doing something like that.
Well, Ralph,
Yeah, we can.
I think we can look at that, but I think we need to do something around what is permitted today, because otherwise it's unregulated. And there's potentially right now nightly rentals going on that we're not collecting, less than 30-day nightly rentals going on, we're not collecting tax on because we don't have this in place.
And this gives us also the ability to track how many of them there are, because just because you're entitled to have a nightly rental, you might not. And so of the ones that exist, if we by requiring business licensing, it allows us to know where they are. And that also helps. And I think just pointed out to me that the 30-minute response time is also probably tied into fire and police response times, or the ability to, if there is an issue, you're going to have a pretty quick response. So on that end.
Yeah, I'm certainly not trying to dispute anything either you were saying. I'm in total agreement. I'm just thinking, rather than, having another addition to this, that we just write this to our specifications by just changing the term here. So, I mean, the terminology. And if that's legal, then I would propose that.
Okay, yeah, I would say that from a legal perspective, we want to stick with the state definition. And then if we end up as a town having a separate definition, at that time, we can nuance it. But it's hard right now we need to make sure that we have some consistency with that state code definition.
So I guess what I'm hearing Polly say, Ralph, is if we come up with language that would consider 31 to 90 days another kind of transient usage, then we would have to put some different language together for that, and then have code to support that other amount of time. I don't think we can. I think we'd have to separate it from what the state is officially calling nightly rental transient room tax. I think that's what Polly's saying.
No, I get what she's saying. I'm just not understanding why we just couldn't change this unless it's illegal to do that. I get the point on the 30, that we're consistent, at least at this point. I was just thinking, well, why write a second document later when we could do it directly within this? But
I think what she's saying is we can't, Ralph. I think she's saying we have to come up with different language that defines that period of time greater than 30 days and less than 90 or less than 91. I think that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah. And we can, I mean, it's not a big deal to address that next phase, 31 days to 90 days when we're crafting whatever language we come up with. And thank you for pointing that out. That section should have all been underlined, and I don't know, I think it might have been a Word to PDF issue. So I apologize that didn't show up. That whole short-term rental section should have been underlined, because that's brand new language.
Well, thanks.
So, Polly,
You get my point, Polly. So
Yeah,
maybe we could think about this and have something that we can think about as a council that encompasses both, and with a plan to put both in place if we want that, of course, But
right.
The town is certainly, given through our surveys, given feedback, and even with our general plan, master plan, we got a lot of feedback. So the town has been pretty consistent upon that. That's my point.
So let's
Thanks.
take that
Thanks.
as an action item. Let's take that as an action item for the legal team to take a look at how we can put language together to regulate 31 to 90 days. and what we can and can't do from a tax standpoint, as well as what would be required of somebody renting for what we would be considering a medium-term rental. Let's call it a medium-term rental as opposed to a short-term or nightly. Okay, Polly, Cameron, okay?
Yep, that sounds great.
All right, so in the meantime, we still believe that we ought to do this for this short-term nightly language that's in your package tonight. In would request whether the town to consider whether or not the council to consider whether or not they'd be willing to pass this tonight.
I think we need to pass it because we need to get we need to start collecting tax and get this regulated, and we can always change it later, but I don't think we should put it off.
Yeah, I feel the same way as Sherry.
So again, that's great, and I'm glad that that's why we're going to take a vote and see how you all feel. But I do believe my goal of stating that was I'd like to take it to vote and see where you guys are. So I would need a motion to adopt an ordinance amending the code as described here and adopting Title 4, Chapter 7, regulation of short-term / nightly rentals.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you. All right. Sherry, how do you vote
Yes.
on this?
Yes.
Thank you. Carol, how do you vote on this?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. Chris?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. This ordinance will be adopted. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, the next item is consideration and possible approval to enter into a lease for a mini excavator for the Hideout Public Works Department. So a mini X is like a small backhoe, and I'm gonna let Tim, I'm assuming you're on, take you through the justification for the thought process, and then Jan can talk about the purchase options. We've got an opportunity to get financing for it. So let's start with Tim.
Yeah, good evening, council, and thank you, Mayor, and thank you for considering this this option to have a mini excavator for the town to do some maintenance work that I think is desperately needed after storms, during spring cleanup, and things that are will be helpful for us to maintain storm drainage and some utilities as we continue to grow and get bigger. As you can see in my numbers, they're pretty close to what Jan had said. I didn't realize that I forgot to factor in the final purchase price, which I didn't have from Zion's, but I knew that the $55,000 would be provided, and our annual yearly cost, which would be kind of the lease and maintenance and fuel. We're saving a lot of money this year in fuel by using a state-owned fleet, state of Utah fleet gas purchase. So we're saving about almost $2 a gallon now currently, and we're kind of factored that in regards to fuel. So it's definitely going to be a help for us. And as you can see in my memo that I wrote, it was awful hard to try and find a machine to rent. We did actually, and I think most of you probably saw, we did actually have a chance to rent, and we did a street sweeper to kind of help clean up some of the areas in town. And that's actually, we're sending that back tomorrow. So it was just really hard to find one. And as I put in my memo there, you can see that we did find some, but they were in different states, and the cost of transporting them here for about 2 weeks, it was just too cost prohibitive. And so talking with other people, this was the best alternative, I thought, and I am grateful to submit the memo for your consideration. I am available for any questions if you have any.
Yeah, maybe we could have Jan jump in and just talk about what, the terms here look like it starts September 22nd. I think that there's some financing issues that maybe we're going to buy it, and then Zions is going to reimburse us once the agreement is executed, but there was the hope to buy the machine sooner than Zions could get us the deal for the lease. Jan, can you speak to that?
Sure. And as Tim suggested, we had a storm that created a public safety issue with some backups, and had we had a piece of equipment available to us, we would have been more effectively able to respond to some of those emergency issues. And then again, should we have another issue, as Tim said, we would have to pay a premium to get the equipment in by finding it in another state. So we initially looked in the budget as Tim found a piece available to acquire. We looked in the budget at how we could rearrange and afford it in this year's budget. We're able to do that, to rearrange. And so we are able to move quickly and acquire this piece before it disappears. But also in looking at long-term planning, we thought, it makes sense to spread it over a few years, because we do have other projects, other good financial management that we are incorporating into our budget. So we have the best of both worlds, because we can acquire the equipment quickly, and Zions is willing to reimburse us so that we can spread it over a longer term.
And Jan, can you confirm, is it, the document says September 22nd, but you had indicated that it might not happen until October?
It really is flexible at this point, and it's set up so that if we pass it tonight, we get Zions on board as soon as possible. Or if we just decide to acquire the equipment, they'll rearrange according to our needs.
Okay.
So, Jan, what ends up being we're calling it a lease, but it's not really a lease because we're owning it, first of all, right?
It's a capital lease. So by the time we pay it off, we will own the equipment. There's like a $1 buyout or something.
Right. Okay. And what is we spread the $55,000 over 5 years, 4 years?
Yes.
What's the plan?
The suggestion is 5 years.
Okay.
And is the interest rate, what's the interest rate, Jan? And do we look at a 3 to 5 year? Because maybe if it was 3, we'd have a lower interest rate. Did we look at that spread as opposed to just 5?
Given that we were considering buying it outright, we didn't really evaluate spreading it longer. And also,
Actually, that would be shorter. So,
I'm sorry.
If we compressed, typically your interest rates go down. And right now, obviously, we're in a high end market. So just curious if you did any kind of comparison on that, because it looks like, and I'm having a hard time seeing this because I don't think I looked at, is it 4.5 something?
Yeah, I'm having a hard time seeing it too. I think I circulated the today's terms independent of this agreement earlier. But yes, it's under 5%, 4.6.
Yeah.
So Ralph,
you can see it as it's 4.63.
I think we could, if the council provided the leeway to evaluate 3-year and 5-year to see which is a better decision. Sorry.
we can certainly do that.
I got to change positions here. So if you gave us, if you're okay with the buy and authorize me to sign on the better rate in terms, if we can get a better rate in terms for a shorter time, then that'd be fine. So it's either going to be roughly, $20,000 a year for 3 years, or I don't know, $12,000 a year for 5 years.
Yeah.
5 years, something like that.
Yeah, I would say, Mayor, if you can, if you can have a little flexibility, I would certainly like to grant that to you. Kind of get the best rate, if you can,
Hey, I have a question. Did we settle that?
Sorry. Yeah, go
That's
ahead.
okay. Did we settle that Ralph saying that he'd be okay giving the mayor the flexibility to negotiate a better rate, shorter term?
As long as the budget committee feels that the difference in the spend between 3 and 5 years is acceptable for the budget purposes, yeah.
Okay. I have a question for Tim. Hey, Tim.
Yeah, go. Hi, Chris.
Do you have any like ballpark estimates of how many hours a year you'd think you'd be operating the Mini X?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that was included in the memo too. And I think with storm stuff too. Last year, my first year dealing with the snow that we had, we're going to be able to utilize it pretty much year round. And so, moving some storm, some of the snow that gets banked up on the corners of streets or at the dead ends of streets, we'll be able to come in instead of just, having one of my guys use a snow blower to kind of chip all that down and get it out. This is going to be a lot quicker. We're going to be able just to knock it down and move it out pretty quick. So we're going to save some man hours in regards to utilizing it for snow. And plus it's got a little blade on it. So we'll be able to push in some areas maybe that we hadn't been able to push before. Areas that have been iced over, for example, that may not see the sun pretty much all day, we can actually kind of use the bucket to kind of tap on that and gently without breaking anything except the ice to kind of break that through. So I'm excited about it. So I think we're going to be able to use about 8 to 12 weeks. Eight's probably a really realistic number out of the year for sure. And again, as things come up, hopefully we never have to use it for utility breaks but mainly for maintenance. I think that's the biggest thing. And me and Dan will be out there on it and utilizing it to make things work a little bit better and maintain it more than we have here in the past. So that's a great question. So hopefully I answered it for you.
I just did a quick calculation.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
For the Mini X, the Mini X should last a good long time if you're only using it like a year. We're talking 25, 30 years of use if we keep it maintained.
Correct. Yeah, and it's got very low clock hours. Right now, I think we're buying with 80 existing clock hours on it. So, I've seen some machinery that comparable, that have, upwards of 2 to 400 hours in that range. So yeah, we're going to be able to definitely keep it a long time.
It seems like a long, long time.
Well, I'm looking at it a different way, Chris, which is at $1,500 a pop for a few days use. If we do that 4 times a year, we're basically spending what we'd be spending on the 5-year plan.
Right, exactly. And we're going to get 6 times more out of it in terms of longevity, right? Yeah, so it makes a lot of sense to me. And the other question, Tim, is this a new one, a brand new Mini X?
It's a 2021, and it has 80 clock hours on it already. So it's used, but it's very lightly used. So we're pretty happy about that.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
And Tim, what do you expect the cost of maintenance on this kind of equipment to get the full cost of ownership?
Yeah, great. That's a great question. Gas isn't going to be an issue too much. So most of that maintenance that you see, I'm anticipating roughly a little over 1,000 a year. What really the biggest maintenance items are is grease, and keeping them maintained and getting everything in. The hydraulics have to be greased pretty well, and some of the some of the moving parts that don't require the definite hydraulic grease. And so there's a little bit of maintenance to it. But reading over, kind of the maintenance manual, it's stuff that our staff can do. So we shouldn't be able to, and we shouldn't have to, I'm hoping, have to send that out. We should be able to do all that maintenance in-house. So again, it's the cost of that is really going to be fuel and our maintenance, hydraulic grease and things like that to keep it running.
Yeah, that's good input. Thanks, Tim. And
Yeah,
I'm thinking if we ever buy any additional equipment, it'd be good to know if you do have to send it out, where do you send it out? Is there a service facility somewhere in Wasatch or Summit, or do you have to take it to Salt Lake? And what does that look? Maybe you can give us a brief synopsis of that.
So there isn't anybody here in Wasatch that I have found that does it. I mean, there's the Kubota rental place here in town, but they don't do any repairs unless it's minor, like engine work. But it would have to go to down to either Orem or Provo, which is where we rented from Cat Rentals. They have a full service warehouse, or we could take it to Salt Lake, where there's at least 4 or 5 in that area. So, the one thing we're actively trying to pursue and find next is a haul trailer. Yeah, because the top speed of the Mini X is only 2 miles an hour. So you can't drive it very fast, but we're trying to find a used travel trailer that we can put on the back of our trucks if we have to move it around town, or take it for any maintenance issues.
Yeah, that was my follow-up. Exactly. So thanks, Tim.
Mine too. So we have to plan on, there's a trailer. You must buy a trailer also with this. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, we don't have to, but 2 miles an hour is going to take a little bit of time.
You have to buy a trailer.
Yeah.
No, we have to buy a trailer. Do we know the ballpark? Sorry, do we know
Sorry, Chris. I'm
do
trying
we know
to
the
tell you what
ballpark
we'd
for the
be doing.
trailer? Because we've got to include this in our total calculation. What's the ballpark for a trailer? Does anybody know? Is it like $2,000? Is it less?
Well,
yeah.
Go ahead, Mayor.
Go ahead, Tim. I mean, we looked up some prices. They're not super expensive for the weight of this thing.
No, they're really not. And and my guys, we're looking at dump trailers. They're a little more expensive. It'll help us do some extra things, but is that really what we need for this trailer? The answer is no. I mean, and dump trailers that can hold a lot, you're looking at a used one for about $12,000. So, just a general trailer to load it on, move it around, Mayor's correct, you're looking at about $2,000 to $3,000.
So do you foresee that trailer, what I'm thinking is, again, how we can get use out of, if we're going to buy more equipment, or maybe we're not, but, it sure seems like we can't get a hold of equipment when we want it. Getting any servicing or just equipment in general, or getting other contractors in here is hard to do. Do you see any other future use? Do you see us, Tim, buying more equipment over time? And could we use a trailer certainly for multiple pieces of equipment? I just trying to think out in the future, so we're not kind of hemmed in with just one piece of equipment.
Yeah.
For one piece
No.
of equipment.
Yeah. Great question. Absolutely. I mean, give you an example. When we have to haul our barricades around to, block off some roads for, like for example, between Shoreline and Deer Springs that we've seen, we have to actually ask people to move it for us. And so that will actually be, that trailer, whether it's a regular trailer or a dump trailer, we'll be able to help transport items around town, signs, et cetera, that we can use. So the trailer is going to get a lot of use, to be quite honest. And so I'm just trying to find one that fits our budget, what we're looking for. I mean, there's plenty of trailers, but do I want to spend, $6,000 for a trailer? No. So we just got to be patient. One will come up and we'll make sure we find one. But yeah, it's going to get a lot of use. I mean, and again, the barricades is a great example. Hauling our skid steer would be another great example. Part of the reason why I'm trying to find a really reasonable used dump trailers because we can put salt in it, and haul that around, make it easier to, move salt into our trucks, out of the shop. And so there's a bunch of things we can do with the trailer. We just have to find one. And so, I'm trying to keep it as low as possible. And me and Mayor have talked and we're trying to see if we can find one anywhere from between $2,000 to $4,000.
Thanks for that. Thanks for thinking ahead as well.
Motion detected at the front door. Sorry about that.
Other questions for Tim? Hello? Anybody there? Did I lose the line?
No, we're here.
Oh, okay.
And I think there's a resolution attached, as you can see, and I think that if as part of your motion, you authorize the mayor to continue any negotiation to get a better deal, as it was maybe not so, then that would encompass it. So the motion
Paul.
would be to adopt the resolution and authorize the mayor to continue negotiations.
Chris, I was just going to mention one thing, which is if which is what happens today, if we have a breakdown today with equipment and we don't have a trailer, then we pay the service people, just like a tow truck comes to take your car away, you pay the tow truck. We pay the service yard to come collect the vehicle. So over time, the payback on a trailer is going to come a whole lot more quickly than calling the tow truck, because not only does it tow it down, when you tow your car, at least it's fixed. When it's done, you drive it back. But because these larger pieces of equipment aren't roadworthy in that respect, you also pay them to drive it home for you. So
and Mayor, if I can,
go ahead, Tim.
I was going to say, if I can interject, I did neglect to mention that even on our trailer, and Mayor, we've talked about this, and this, that I did put room in our budget this year for a capital purchase like that. And so it's just a matter of finding one that, is going to fit kind of with what I had planned for our public works budget for the upcoming year.
So any further questions?
None from me.
Nope. Do you need a motion?
Yes.
Yeah, I would need a motion to adopt a resolution to enter into the capital lease for the mini X as described, and allowing the mayor, me, to work with staff to continue to find the best financing rate options for that unit.
So I'll be happy to offer that motion to enter in the agreement and then allow you the flexibility to look at the various purchasing lease interest options.
Great, thank you, Ralph. Anybody want to second that?
I'll second.
Thank you. Okay, Chris, how do you feel?
I vote yes.
Thank you. Carrie,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes, but I have one question. Should we maybe include the trailer in this or not? That's not necessary.
well, it's budgeted in Tim's budget, and it's not capital lease, so it would come under a different agreement. It's just a purchase.
Okay, so
Which-
yeah, my answer is
which-
yes.
So, which actually falls under my authority to buy too. So, where this one has to come to you because it's big bucks. Okay, thank you all for that. I'm sure Tim is very grateful. We expect to see
Yes.
it out there, Tim.
Oh, you'll
And,
see it, trust me. I've got
doing
something
some-
I need to do.
particularly
I'm
on
sure.
the, I think it's going to be very useful on the sides of the roads where the trenches get filled in over time and allow spillover. I think that's going to be great. We'll get some,
Yep.
be able to do that, clean that work up ourselves.
Yep,
May
correct.
I just get some clarification? Is this agreement to move forward and acquire the property ASAP and then to work on a shorter lease term as,
Yes.
okay,
Yes.
got it.
Yeah, that's
All
what
right.
we're gonna we're gonna go ahead and buy it as per the plan. Then we're gonna ask Zions to give us, see if they do anything different for us on the 3-year versus a 5-year.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item on the agenda, we have been playing with the Poly platform for a month or so now. Alicia's had notices out on it. I guess you've given input. I'm not, I'm not in the loop on all that, but what I would like to have input from the council is: you think we're ready for prime time? Is it time to roll it out, get it going? Are you happy enough with it? Is it close enough that we can drive forward?
I like it. I get the notices and it's informative, and I think the residents would like it.
Thanks, Sherry. Let me phrase it another way. Anybody object to us moving it forward?
I'm not objecting, but I didn't have a lot of time to get at it. I didn't see a lot of populated items in the kind of test, the proof of concept program here, trial period that we had. So I exhausted very quickly the options. I'm assuming there's going to be a little bit greater depth of application because at least from my view, from a software product like this, I thought it was a little bit thin, at least in the POC, the proof of concept, trial period. So I don't know if anybody else felt the same way, but I quickly exhausted the ability to kind of go through what the options were. It looks good, but I didn't see really where I saw the options where I could actually get in there and do something with. I felt like I exhausted it within, a very short period of time.
Yeah, I had the
That's
same experience, Ralph, and also some things didn't work. Like I had to do workarounds. So, I don't know exactly what you want to release for the residents, within the application. Yeah, what is your plan for, what features and functionality you want to roll out? And is there going to be any kind of phased rollout? And what will we be trying to accomplish?
There is a rollout plan. The elements, we have more elements that can be added over time. We tried to limit it to things that are critical for public information. So, there's a section for public works and things like road closures. There's a section for council, and reminders there in case people don't, not everybody subscribes to the email reminders and so forth. There is a section for the social activities that have gone on, which seem to be very popular with the town. So, and then we'll be taking input on, from residents on what are there other things they'd like to see on the app. Again, they're all tunable. You don't have to subscribe to anything except the emergency notices, if that's all you want, or you can subscribe to, the council elements, the social elements, etc. We have a descriptor package that goes with it. encouraging people to download the app, select their areas of interest. We have descriptions in that package describing what those areas of interest cover, and then there's other features that we're hoping to use, like the poll or survey elements. I was hoping to use the poll element, for example, to get feedback on the dark skies. But if we don't roll the app out, we'll have to do that a different way.
Yeah, that's a piece, Mayor, that I couldn't find. So I was interested in exactly the same thing. What is a survey? What does a polling look like in this particular app? And maybe I missed it. Did anyone else see that? Or
I'm in there
experience?
right
There's a
now. I
draft
can't
in
see
there.
it.
I don't think.
Yeah, I couldn't
No,
either.
it's not been issued because the team has been reluctant to, quote, fill your notices up with junk, because it's by subscription only at the moment. It's not available for anyone else unless we assign your email. If the council is willing, then I will ask the team to beef up the notices, and we'll come back next month and make this decision, and we'll push out junk. They won't actually be real notices, but we'll push out something in every area so that it shows up. We'll put in a survey. We'll publish the survey draft as if it's real, so you can see what you'd see if we actually sent it out to the community, etc. So that we can do.
That would be
If
great.
you're okay with us, if you're quote okay with us filling up your app with trial messages. I won't call them junk, but I'll call them trial messages.
Yeah,
Well,
I
you
was
could-
more interested in the survey particularly and what that looks
Yeah,
like.
well,
So
yeah,
even
yeah,
just
each
having
of
one,
the features, Ralph.
yeah, just having
We're gonna
one
still
survey
do
question.
every
One-
feature, every feature.
Yeah.
We'll try them all.
Can I ask a quick question? We
Sure.
put out a survey. Is it not showing on your app?
I don't see it,
I can't-
Alicia.
I can't find it,
Oh.
Alicia. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
We didn't publish it, Alicia. in-
It's on mine. So if you're under
Unless you
the
converted
all,
it.
there's a poll, and yeah, it's on mine. I responded back to it. Let me just make sure.
And when you say all, I'm seeing settings where we have a set of choices. We have feed and announcements on mine. I don't know if I have the most current app that was downloaded, but I think because I only recently downloaded a couple of weeks ago. Chris, what are you seeing on your?
I'm seeing the same as you, Ralph. I don't see what Alicia's talking about. Even if I go
Okay.
under settings, so I think we just need a little bit more testing on it and make sure the proof of concept, does everything that you think it's doing. From your administrative end to, work with those of us who are on the end user end to make sure that everything is looking like it's supposed to.
Yeah. And if somebody could, either Ralph or Chris or both, if we can talk offline, and maybe, because I'm seeing on both my Android and my iPhone, I can see the poll. So
Yeah, well, we can take a snapshot of our, what we're seeing, just by pressing an Android or Apple, and then we can either send that to you. But I would be more than happy to jump on a quick call with you and just say, what are you saying? What are we saying? What would we like to see? What are the options? Particularly, again, that survey I think is going to be so important to us to get feedback. And if that's an easy thing to use, then we're going to get a lot more input from the town.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Just another round of testing, user testing,
Okay.
would be a good thing. And then maybe we can get to roll it out shortly thereafter.
Okay. All right. So if you guys
I'm not seeing the poll either.
I see the poll on mine.
Yeah,
So
Alicia,
either we all haven't checked the same things when we set up or in our settings, or
Alicia, if you're in the office sometime
Mhm.
next week, I can just drive over and sit with you for 15 minutes and we'll goof around with our phones and just make sure what you think you're posting, I'm actually seeing.
Okay, that sounds great.
Okay.
Sounds like you got the advanced version, Alicia.
I
Well, she's the
guess.
administrator. She gets to see everything.
Well, me and Sherry apparently.
Right.
So yeah, let's work on it. And then if you guys, like Mayor said, if you're okay with us just throwing out some junk out there and just, because it's just town staff right now that has it.
We'll be able to clean all that test data out before we actually launch it for public consumption, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's no problem.
Okay, perfect. So thanks, you guys.
Sure.
Okay, thank you all very much. Chris, I'm going to sign off and turn over the meeting to you. And because I'm getting the evil eye.
Well, great. Okay, so everybody buckle your
I'm sick.
seatbelts. We're going to go quickly through the remainder of the
I'm
items.
I'm 6 minutes over my cutoff time as per the instructions of my family. So
Okay.
thank you all, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thanks, Mayor.
Bye.
All right.
Yep.
All right,
Enjoy.
folks. Let's go through the committee updates. Sherry, community
Yes.
engagement.
Yes, the community engagement. So the last concert was a big success despite the weather. So that was fabulous. And a big public shout out now to all the public works that did an amazing job clearing that parking lot. We had about almost 250 people show up despite the weather, which was awesome. So now our last event of the year, because before it gets too cold, is an end of summer celebration. I noticed on the app that they called it the Chill and Grill Party, which I love. So I have to change my flyer. It's going to be a barbecue. We do have a local resident who's a musician that will be there playing background music. We'll have some lawn games and just a chance to hang out and meet your neighbors. So we're hoping for a really good turnout. I hope everyone that's on the call can come. It's for residents of Hideout and staff. And we hope to see you all there. It's going to be fun. Same location, 4 to 7 p.m. on the 24th of September. So I'll keep it short.
Who's providing the barbecue? And it looks like you're requesting food, Utah
yes.
Food Bank donations also.
Yeah, sorry. Tired. Yes, all we're asking is everyone to bring a non-perishable food item for the food bank donation. But the event is free, so that's the price of admission is a non-perishable food item or more. The barbecue is going to be catered by Myers Catering out of Salt Lake. It's going to be hamburgers and chicken, and there'll be vegetarian options as well. Brownies and ice cream for dessert. So it should be fun. Hope all the council can come.
Hey, if somebody wants to write a check to Utah Food Bank instead of bringing a can, does that work too?
They probably can. I don't know that we'll have people actually there to collect checks. So if they want to do that, they can send that in. We'll have, big baskets. We're not going to monitor the fact that people are bringing things. We just hope that people will do it on the honor system, because I don't know that we're going to have people there to collect checks.
Okay, thanks.
So, but good question. So,
okay, Sherry, anything else you want to highlight for the committee?
We're trying to make a plan for next year to be able to have more events. This was our first year, so we managed to put together 3 events, but it's a lot of work. So we'll need more volunteers to help with things. So next year we're hoping to get more events, people love the concerts. We were thinking about doing a movie night, but everybody wanted music and gathering where they can talk to people instead. So that's why we didn't do the movie night. In the winter, one of the committee members had a great idea of doing some guided cross-country hike and snowshoeing tours that people could sign up for. So we're going to try to do that. But we don't have a location indoors to do events once the weather gets cold. So we can't really do big community events yet, but hopefully someday we will.
Okay, well, your committee is also known as the Fun Committee, I hear.
Yes, we have a fun committee.
Anyways, we've made a huge difference. Thank you so much, Sherry.
Oh, you're welcome. It's fun.
Okay, we're on the clock. So Ralph, Economic Development Committee, what do you have for us?
Well, to just, start out, it's Scott Davis Katie Shepley and Craig Duper are on it. Jan and I participate. I'm going to call this the quiet committee because we've been doing a lot of work in the background, but some of the probably some of the sharing might be sensitive because there's a lot of creative economic ideas. And I think if we wanted to get into the detail of that, we'd probably do that in closed session. And so I would just say that we've been having consistent regular meetings, and Jan's been always inviting key people to be part of that meeting, either people we might be negotiating with or people that are part of MIDA. Rob Zant, who really knows the dynamics of financing in some of this stuff. So we've been doing a lot of education between ourselves and inviting outside people. So kudos to Jan for getting all the right folks, and kudos to the team for really doing some what I would call creative ideas, which again, we'd probably have to go into, a closed session to deal with. And by the way, Sherry, I won't be, the last concert was great and really enjoyed it. Sorry, I won't make this on the 24th. I'll be out of town.
I know.
But keep doing what you're doing. Suzanne will be there. Anyway, that's my quick and dirty report on the EDC.
Thanks, Ralph. Anybody have any questions for Ralph? All right, I'm going to move on. Thanks, Ralph. To the Parks Open Space Trails Committee, and that's me. So we met on the 16th of August, and we're going to be meeting again in 3 weeks with finally we're going to get to sit down with the park manager at Jordanville State Park, Jason Whitaker. Very excited about doing that because we have a lot to talk about. So happy to report that's happening. Thanks, Jan and Kathleen for making that happen for us. Thomas has been working with Doug Smith about including, Hideout and all the planning. Thomas, I don't know if you want to speak at all to that, or if you're prepared for that. Go ahead.
No, just that we've been in discussion with Doug in Wasatch County regarding a couple of things: impact fees for parks, recreation, trails, different kinds of things. So we're looking to see if we can coordinate those efforts, what they have in their code with regard to what we have in our code. And then the only other thing would be that we are incorporating our trail mapping into the regional trail mapping so that all of it is mapped in one place.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Thomas, for being on top of that. We'd also talked about wanting to do a joint planning commission post committee town council meeting, or maybe form a subcommittee to talk about suggested uses for town-owned property. We haven't gotten any traction on that yet, but that is something that we did talk about. Thomas, I don't know if you want to comment on that at all.
Yeah, that is a committee that we want to set up. We've also been Jan and I have been talking about just opportunities about kind of floating that at a pretty high level with some community planning charrettes to start to get general input and then bring it into the committee so that we get an understanding, kind of building off the community survey that went out early in summer.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thomas, did you want to add anything else before I move on to the next committee?
Nope, I think that's it with regard to post.
Okay, thank you. All right, Carol, Transportation Committee.
Okay, there's not a whole lot to report. Jan and I had a Teams meeting with people from Park City Transit, or no, not from Park City Transit, I'm sorry, from Park City. It was Kim Felstead and Matt Neely. And we talked about some of the things that we wanted. The main thing that came out of that meeting, as far as I was concerned, is they are looking for funding from Hideout for some of the things that we had requested that Hideout wanted. They talked about the fact that if Richardson Flat is approved as a parking area for the general public to go into the resorts, that's going to cost $1.5 million. So they were looking they wanted some funding from Hideout. And they talked about the fact that buses, they're going to try to get 248 to have their own bus lane. They're going to open up the shoulder and it would be a bus lane just for buses so that, you know, the other traffic would still be stopped going into Park City, but the buses should move more quickly. And then I just noticed in the park record that the Summit County Council received all kinds of money. And they're going to work on all kinds of transportation issues in Summit County. Again, we are not included because we are Wasatch County. They also said that it's very expensive for buses to stop, that it disrupts bus service and it costs more money. So that's one of the reasons they're not stopping at Hideout proper. So that's pretty much what I have to report. Jan may want.
Yeah, they do stop. Oh, sorry, Carol. They do stop over at
right.
Deer
They stop at affordable housing there, but there's no parking for us. So it's a moot point. I mean, we can't go there and park and ride a bus because there's no place for us to park. So that's why we felt we were going to look at Richardson Flat as a possibility for us. So Jan, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think it's a great opportunity to collaborate and to build some goodwill. And looking further down the line, if we were to have amenities in town hall that attracted large groups of people, it would be great to be able to collaborate on Richardson Flat and utilize the same shuttle system that's in place in Park City. So to the extent that we can build a relationship now with some of the initiatives that Park City is trying to create, and some of that is a voluntary contribution system. Like if you use this service, we'd love to have a voluntary contribution. So I feel like we're getting in at the right level. And to the extent that we can support that, I think it will only benefit us in the future as we continue to become a destination to bring large crowds of people that have parking needs.
Okay, thank you. All right, the next committee is the Hideout Design Review Committee. Thomas.
Great, thanks. Can I share my screen real quickly? I just have one thing I wanted to share with council. If it's, I think I have to wait for this one to disappear, right?
No, I think you can just share.
Can I share over? Okay, let me try it.
Yeah.
Oh no, I have to wait, it says.
Okay.
I can't.
Oh, Kathleen stopped.
Oh, there. Perfect. So just really, I don't really have any updates. We didn't have a meeting this past month. Everything is moving pretty efficiently with Deer Springs Waters claim, et cetera. So we didn't have a meeting. But if you all remember, this is the park up at Deer Waters. So this is where you're seeing the pickleball courts. They're just about done, I think. The play equipment, I was talking with Nate earlier in the week. The play equipment is on its way. It's a little bit delayed. The truck that it was on overturned, and so it got delayed a couple of weeks, unfortunately. So that's coming. But one of the things that Nate and I discussed earlier in the week is, you know, most of this park, you know where this one is, behind Deer Waters and above Lakeview Estates. Most of this area was kind of early on identified with kind of a native seed mix, which is something that we encourage. But one of the things we started looking at is an opportunity for some sod areas where people could lay out, they could walk their dogs, they could kind of just congregate. And I think it's a great idea. And Nate has the water rights and he is willing to do it. And I just wanted to make sure that before we continue, that I continue working with him, are you comfortable with, you know, some sod going into this area? It wouldn't be a large area. It's about 8,500 square feet, but it'd be enough for people to throw a football, to kind of hang out. Is that something you're generally comfortable with and me working with him on? Because it is different than what we had initially proposed.
I can tell you from my perspective, I like a little bit of grass because it first of all, it's cool and it looks nice. And it's not just native. We have so much native stuff going on here. This would really separate it. Plus, this area is spectacularly scenic. I mean, that is the most scenic pickleball court ever.
Absolutely.
And I think people will like to hang out there and sit and enjoy it, just being outside.
And it's one of the areas where we have relatively level ground, right? Where
Right,
people
exactly.
could actually do that.
So,
Yeah.
and you've got the water, and I know we've gone on about, we're delaying that landscaping water, ordinance, but would this be considered a park then? Like, could be watered on Sunday, or you know what I mean? Is this would be part of it as a park?
Yeah, and per our code, park and recreational areas, for non-passive can have grass. And so it's something that we could work with him on. Yep.
I think the grassy area in the roundabout here in the entrance, which is now the de facto dog park, it's so wildly popular, right? Because it's a flat grassy area, and it's just, I think we need things like this in town. That's my opinion. I'd like to hear from the other council members.
Well, I'd certainly like to see about 3 or 4 of these things in town of different, magnitudes, so to speak. I love the idea of grass, but we're also, I think we have to calculate what the water consumption is and where we get it, only because we're going to be dealing with this anyway. But, the more grass, the better. Just don't know how we get to having that more grass, or, maybe there's other options, Thomas. So, yeah. The more, the better, maybe some other variations, but looks good so far.
I love the idea too. I mean, what this town desperately needs is more parks. So that would at least be a start. But I am concerned about the water. So, we'll just have to wait and see. But yeah.
And maybe just add one more thing, the more trails that we have to connect the park. So people can either walk there, or Chris can ride or bike there, so that it's a stopping point, and it's maybe where at least could be a drinking fountain even, something along those lines. I know that may be pushing things, but, it gets hot here, and, it would encourage people then to get to the next water fountain or something.
Well, Ralph, I would say you're right in line. This does have a drinking fountain incorporated into it, and we did ensure that the trail is connected down to Lakeview Estates. There's some stairs, obviously, to get up here, and there's the trail coming in from Deerwater. So you guys are right in line with where we're trying to take this. It is connected, and we agree. I mean, as a landscape architect, I'm very, very concerned about water, but I think for public parks, small public parks in particular, I think this is actually a pretty elegant and needed approach. So I like where it's going.
Okay. Sherry, did you have anything?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea too. I like the idea of a park right there. It's great view. People can hang out, and maybe we'll do a community dedication there.
There you
next
go.
year.
Fantastic. Okay, the last committee is Tim, infrastructure.
Yeah, infrastructure committee. Well, it's going well, and we got a couple projects that we're starting to push forward and review. One is the overall storm drainage plan. The other is dealing with a new sanitary sewer connection on Highway 248 to handle the east half of our homes that will be built and are existing, instead of running it all down west to our lift station. So we're working actively on that. And then our final one is, working on some Highway 248 access. And this is just me preliminarily doing it right now, but working with UDOT at the Ross Creek entrance. So they are doing some design stuff. So we're just making sure we're communicating with them. They're almost at the 75% stage. So as soon as they get to that point, they take comments and go from there. So we're excited, and we have 3 things, and I'm grateful for the staff that help and volunteer their time, and TO's doing a great job and keeping everything coordinated. So that's our quick and dirty report from the infrastructure committee.
Thank you, Tim. Really appreciate everything you do. I just want to say, I do recognize that Larry E has his hand up, but Larry, we're not in any kind of public input portion of the meeting. So I won't be recognizing you to speak. If you have something you want to say, you can email Hideout at hideoututah.gov and folks will get a chance to read it, or you can contact, folks directly. All right, moving on to the last area, which is approval of council minutes. Has everyone had a chance to read the March 3rd and March 10th minutes? Or does anyone, let me rephrase that, does anyone have any comments or corrections or additions that you want to make for the March 3rd or the March 10th minutes?
Well, I thought the minutes were great. As usual, I also thought, the March 3rd had a lot of stuff in there, but it was mostly dealing with the boulders piece. So there were recommendations from various people, but now we don't have to think about those because we're not going ahead with that project. But I just want to make sure that we think about some of those things that people said so that we could account for that in our next development, and there were some good thoughts in there. That's my only thought about the March 3rd meeting in particular, because there was there was input. Mr. Rudder had a number of good comments, and I thought it's up to us to make sure we capture some of those, not just leave them for the minutes, but use those in our thinking about how we're building the next plan for whatever we're building, so to speak. We won't get into that here.
Yeah, good comments. Thanks, Ralph.
Also, on the second one, Mr. Rudder also mentioned the standards for the pickleball court, which I thought were important, especially based upon what Thomas was just describing here. So, hey, Thomas, have we adopted national standards on some of these things for fence heights? And I remember some of the discussion going back there. Any input on that?
Thomas might have stepped away, and he's on mute right now. Ralph, my observation was the fence was fairly high around the pickleball court. I think I don't know what the regulation is, but it looked reasonable to me. But that would be a good follow-up question for Thomas about what are the actual pickleball court fence heights, and are we doing what we said we would do?
Yeah, especially if we have more, if we have one more, let's say we did 4, we had 2 pickleball courts, we'd certainly want them to match the standards and not do something that looked different in one place and, different in another, so to speak. Definitely. So that we have some consistency. But I'm pretty sure Thomas has probably got on that case.
Yep.
Just wanted to bring it up.
Ralph, do you want to follow up maybe an email to him in case he's not listening to
this?
Well,
and I'm on the design review committee anyway, so I'll just follow up with Thomas in an email.
Okay, super. All right, any other comments anyone wants to make about the minutes? I think we can approve them both at the same time with one motion. So to do that, I would need a motion to approve the council minutes of March 3rd and March 10th, 2022.
Also move.
Thank you, Carol.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Sherry. All right, Ralph.
Yep. Yes.
Okay, I heard a yes. Carol?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Chris? Yes. All right. The last topic is follow-up items from council minutes. Does anyone have anything they want to bring up from the previous minutes that they want to bring up tonight?
I have one. I remembered that I had asked for the pre-disaster mitigation plan to be printed or have printed copies available for council members since we are involved if in case we need to evacuate. Just wondered if anything was ever printed.
You know, I haven't printed those yet, but I have it on my list of things to do. So if you just want to tell me when you're going to be in and I can print, you know, I can print a couple of copies of those for, I think it was just you and Chris that wanted a printed copy, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, that's because we're number 1 and 2 after the mayor.
That would explain it. So yeah, just maybe
it doesn't speak to our technological capabilities.
No. It's no, not at all.
All right,
So
no,
yeah, I would be happy to do that. And I have that as a thing to do. So I'm in the office on Wednesday. So I don't know if you want to swing in or I can just print it and have it there and you can swing by and pick it up anytime. So
Okay, that's great to know. And then I did have one other comment quickly. We had talked about the address markers, that they should be visible at all times. And because there was a question about some of the like Rustler and Shoreline, that it was difficult to see where the addresses were. I know we talked that we didn't want to put them at the end of the driveways because during the winter time, they'd be covered with snow a lot of times or ice.
Right.
But I wondered if we had moved ahead with that as to how to make them visible and whose responsibility it was. I know it was kind of an action item way back when in March. So.
Are the address markers numbers not visible currently, like in Shoreline or at Rustler or any of those places?
They're difficult to see. Some of them are really difficult. They're not lit. So if somebody was trying to access a place, you know, when it was dark, you really can't see them. So I mean, we had talked about it, that they were going to, if I recall during that discussion, they were going to look into making them more visible. I mean, whether it would be a different kind of paint that was a contrast paint or what. Because it's hard to identify, like during an emergency, some of the homes would be hard to identify.
I can give you my recollection and then I can follow up and check what actually happened and let you know. But there was, I think that was in conjunction with adopting the WUI code.
Yeah,
and
it was.
So there were a number of ways that we had talked about trying to regulate the addresses. And so I think what we changed it to, and I'll go back and verify and update the council on it, but I think what we changed it to is it has to be visible from the driveway entrance. It doesn't have to be at the entrance, but it has to be visible from there. That's my recollection, but that may have just been one of the options, and so I'll double check and let you know.
Okay.
Cameron, that's how I remember it as well, but thanks for looking into it. How will you get back to us? Is it just going to be an email to the council or?
Yeah, I'll probably just send an email, just like a short little quick staff report email.
Okay, that'd be super. Thank you. Carol, anything else that you can think of?
No, not well. Yeah, actually, I made a lot of, but I don't want to belabor the point. I just wondered. I know that we had talked about that there needed to be further meetings with HOA associations, and because there was one meeting, I believe, and then I don't think that there were any more. I just wondered if there were any follow-up meetings.
You mean about
again,
dark skies or something?
well, there were a number of things, I think, like the address markers and some of the water issues. I just, as I was reading through the minutes, you know, it said that they were gonna have another meeting with HOA officers of the different associations, and I just wondered if that ever happened. You know, again, we're just kind of this is a follow-up to the things that we had recommended during our meetings.
Alicia, you have anything in that area to report?
I think in the minutes, it was particular to the WUI, and I believe that Tim and Cameron had a follow-up meeting with the HOA folks. Is that right?
Oh, yeah, that's correct. Sorry, I was Yeah, that that is 100% correct. We did have a meeting with the HOAs, and I think we answered pretty much all their questions that they had for us at that meeting at that time.
And I think the mayor met with them as well separately. So I think they had 2 meetings.
Right, there was a meeting for sure that was held, and then there was supposed to be a follow-up. Just curious.
And it covered the WUI and the, the more restrictive location of trees and things that are not, that the design review committee and the HOA would have to adopt. Did it include that?
I wasn't at the meeting, so I'll have to defer to Tim or the mayor.
Yeah, will you say that again, Chris, or Carol, whoever asked that
Oh.
question broke up.
My question, Tim, was regarding the WUI. I know we are now regulating how close to homes, trees can be planted so that the crowns are, 10 feet or more away. Were those discussions, were they held with the HOA so that the design review committee could make their adjustments when they approve landscape plans, so that we don't have homeowners like caught in the middle?
Yep, correct. And again, it was, like Cameron and I had said, and Troy from Wasatch Fire, we're going to work with our existing HOAs or homeowners if they desire to help, let them know, here's what it is, but we're not going to hold them to that standard because they're grandfathered in basically. So anything new working forward, Wasatch and Thomas if he's still on, we're going to have a review. It goes through us, and it'll also go through Wasatch Fire to make sure that they're in compliance with the new WUI code.
Yes, I can actually tell you from personal experience because we put in our design review application right after that was passed. And they actually sent a note back saying that there was a new ordinance passed by the town and we would have to follow that. And
Great.
When we put our plan in, we specifically noted things that were following that, and they did not disprove anything. So
great. Oh, good. Thanks, Sherry. That's perfect feedback. So, okay. So it's working.
yes, we'll see what happens when we actually
I hope
landscaping.
Yeah, it is. And I think everybody's doing a great job with it.
Thank you so much, Tim. Thanks, Sherry. Carol, any other items that you want to bring up tonight?
No, I'll bring them up the next meeting.
Okay. No, but we really do appreciate you keeping tabs and following up on this. This is all good stuff.
Okay.
All right. Any other council members have anything else from prior council minutes or follow-up items you want to bring up before we adjourn?
Yeah, I have one more item. It's
Okay.
not so much about any specific item, but Alicia, I thought we were going to kind of have an ongoing spreadsheet of follow-up items, which I think are really important. So, rather than, some of us trying to capture that from past history, that we can just kind of have a tracking sheet. Does that make sense? Because I remember we were talking about that. I wouldn't want to I don't want to add one more thing to your list of what you're doing. We're all really busy, but because follow-up items are so kind of important, particularly the ones that we should work, that's what we're here for, to get things either resolved or knowing things that can't get resolved, so to speak. Is there a way that you think it would be easy for you, because you're putting together these minutes, and as you're going through them, there's pieces in those minutes that we're rereading and we're saying these are action items. So could we just extract those and pop them into, call it a spreadsheet with, every other meeting, the spreadsheet becomes part of the minutes, and we just say, hey, these have been completed, these are open items. So we all have kind of a consistent view of the follow-ups. Again, I'm not trying to create more work for anyone. I know we're all really, really busy, but is there a way we could track these in an easy sense?
Yeah, so I started a Google Docs spreadsheet that kind of did that. I I'm assuming you haven't seen it yet. Um, I thought I'd
Well,
give
I
it.
may have seen it, I may have forgotten about it,
Oh.
and then not seeing it here, and we're all trying to pick through the minutes and
Mhm.
say, oh, what were those actions? It'd just be so great to just, have one picture of all the stuff we've done, all the outstanding items that come through our discussions here, and which ultimately transform themselves into minutes. Anyway, food for thought. I'm not asking you to do this today, but maybe think about how you'd want to track this off of our minutes.
Okay.
There's already a Google Docs that Alicia started, Ralph. I think maybe we need to get into the habit of looking at it from time to time. It's, this is always a classic problem with any group that's trying to
Yep.
work and accomplish things, is who's going to keep track of all the little things that everybody
Yeah.
has to do. It's a
Hey, and maybe you just put the Google Docs link in and just, as part of minutes, say, remind everybody it's been updated before our council meeting. Here's the link, and we just go to it,
That's
That's fine with me. That's fine
an
with me.
excellent idea. I would be happy to do that. Yeah.
That's perfect. A link to the Google Docs, so we cannot say we can't remember where it is.
Right. That sounds
Okay.
great.
I forget where my own business stuff is sometimes, so, I'm not expecting, so in any case, just keep us memory jogged here, Alicia.
Sure. No problem.
Thanks, Alicia. That would be really helpful for all of us, I think.
Great suggestion. Thanks, Ralph.
Okay. All right. With that, I need first of all, is Polly still on, or is Polly, what time is it, Polly?
Polly's
She left.
not here.
Okay,
She
good.
left. Thank
Cameron, do we have anything for executive?
No, Polly said she would have sent anything that had come up, and so it should be in an email to you. If you have any specific questions, certainly email me and I can get back to you.
Okay, thank you so much. All right. Then with that, I need a motion to adjourn our meeting tonight.
So
I'll move it.
Wait, who was that? Two
We're
at a
all-
time.
That's Carol, and Sherry looks like she's going to second.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Carol. Thank you, Sherry. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed?
Nope.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Really appreciate your time tonight. And
Okay, and thank you for stepping in for our mayor.
Thanks, Chris.
thank you.
Good
Okay.
night, everyone. Come
Night
to
all.
the event.
Okay.
Okay. We'll be there.
Good.
Bye-bye.
All
Bye.
right.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.